Hey guys, how you doing? Just decided, what the hey, I'm gonna do another video today. I'm bored. Let's just say. Um, really, what I wanted to do is react to or talk a bit about Donald Trump being getting positive for Corona. Right? Like this is the big news. Nobody can shut up about it. But Donald Trump, he got the Corona. First of all, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. Honestly, like the guy goes to these rallies with a bunch of anti-maskers, people who think it's a hoax, and he tells them it's a hoax, and he's the president of the United States, for God's sakes. Like, people are going to believe him. Like, that I don't hold against people, right? Because people will follow their leader, right? It's very difficult to get people like here in Canada we live in something of a democracy, but it's incredibly difficult to get people to turn against their leadership. You really, really got to shit the bed as a leader. That's why there's not that many one-term presidents, right? And I think the one-term presidents that exist are people who resigned, like people who stepped down. You know, it's very difficult to be a one-term president, um, largely because I think it takes people a long time to kind of like if they're on your side, or even if they're like sort of mildly like they're just sort of non-committal, right? They'll sort of defer to you anyway, right? Yeah, they'll lean that way. It's just how people are. It's just what it is, you know. And like, why shouldn't they be that way, right? Like we've elected this person to know what's going on. That really is what the position is, right? If you're the prime minister or the president or any of that kind of stuff, right? Like your whole job is to know what's going on. You're told things that no one else is told, right? Like you're put in a privileged position, whether it be, and same thing with like Congress people, or if you're in the House of Commons or any of this kind of stuff, right? Like you are in this sort of privileged position, and people expect you to know what's going on. Um, and so even if you're skeptical, even if you're a skeptic like I am, and everything that any politician says, even politicians you like, you have to verify and double check and make sure they're not full of shit. Um, you know, you're going to have people who are just going to defer to the people in power because that's their job. They know more than I do about that. They should, right? And they do, and they should. And it takes a very special sort of politician, I think, to actively torpedo themselves. And like I'll be curious to see how he spins it, right? Like Donald Trump gets coronavirus, which he has always claimed was a hoax, right? Oh, it's a government hoax. Oh, it's fine. Well, if it's a hoax and it's fine, then it's not a big deal, is it? Oh, but he's got to go into quarantine right in the middle of a campaign. Interesting. And this just sort of flows into a larger point that I just keep talking about over and over and over again on this channel. People are fucking gullible. People are fucking gullible. And they will just follow their leader. Like what's happening here in Ontario with Doug Ford. Doug Ford is he's waffling, I don't want to do lockdowns, all this kind of stuff. John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, same story. Right? He could do these lockdowns, right? He could force Doug Ford's hand. He could take control of the situation. He could enact things. But they're just like, because they got to save their precious economy. The economy, right? Got to make sure that money flows to the billionaire class. And what's absurd about that is like, people seem to have it stuck in their minds that the worst thing that can happen to a person is they lose their business or they lose their job. Oh no. Like, don't get me wrong, it's tragic, but dying is more tragic, right? Oh, that person had to close their business. Yeah. No. Well, off to bury my mom, right? Like, where are your priorities? The reality is that the priorities of the capitalist class are with those businesses, right? The priorities of the capitalist class is with business. They don't care if your mom dies. They don't care at all. Have a nice funeral, right? Like, what they care about is money for themselves, obviously. If they actually cared about the well-being of the populace, we'd already be in lockdown. Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, it's people just are following along with what their leadership says because that's what their leadership says, right? It's like ingrained inside of the human species to like bob their head along and be like, "Oh yes, you're the leader. You must know what's going on." You know, it's like we're children, and we never actually develop outside of being a child, right? We just are a child, and we just become, older. Like our bodies get old and decay and then eventually die, but we're 12. Like we're perpetually 12. And we just don't actually develop or grow into anything better or different. Like people who have lived in these bubble lives, like if you've grown your whole life, and if you're like, working, and your whole life has been uh, go through school, maybe go through graduate school, right? Go through university and then step into a job and just work that job. And if that's basically been your life with very little deviation, then you don't know what you're fucking like. You don't know anything. Like you literally don't know anything. Like you might be good at your job, and I'm not going to take that away from you, but like there's there's an eon of experiences, right? A lot of them are horrific. There's an eon and a plethora of things that are happening in the world, and if your whole life has been get born to a rich family, here's Doug Ford's trajectory: get born to a rich family, uh, go through school, drop out of, go to college but drop out, become a drug dealer, um, and then just take your dad's seat basically, because he was an MP, so you just run with his name, right? You know fuck all. Like Doug Ford knows fuck all, right? He's a rich prick with his daddy's name, who didn't learn anything, doesn't know anything, uh, and has been given one of the highest honors and responsibilities in the society. We voted him in, and then he got hit with a pandemic. And just like Trudeau, right? Both of them panicked, right? Trudeau is the same trajectory, if you ask me. He didn't become a drug dealer. He actually became like a drama teacher, right? He didn't like he's not an oaf the way like Ford is an oaf, but in terms of their knowledge of the world, their trajectory is very similar, right? They're both rich kids who went up their academic chain until it stopped serving them, right? And then took on their father's mantle because they had the last name of their father. And the uh, Trudeau certainly handles it with more grace, but when and they've acted exactly in the same way. When the pandemic hit, they both did exactly the right thing. If you ask me, when the pandemic first hit, they both did exactly the right thing. Justin Trudeau passed a CERB. He looked to the needs of the populace. He said, "We have to make sure that everyone's taken care of." The policy was really like a big umbrella. Get everybody under it. Big tent. Anybody can apply for the CERB. Don't worry about it. No, we're not going to go after people. Like, come on, let's get everybody under here. That was the initial thing. And with Ford, his reaction was just like to sit down and let the experts tell him what to do, right? Which I'm not going to make fun of him for that. I wish he would do that all the time. I wish that Doug Ford would stop thinking completely and shut his mouth and just sit down and do nothing and let the experts do it. Because if the experts did it, his government would be much more effective instead of this ideological strain of nonsense that we get out of him. And the problem is that he's not a very good ideologue, right? Because he's such an idiot. So, but then both of them got sat down by the capitalist class, and the capitalists said to them, no, you can't let people be free to make their own decisions, and you can't help people like this. Uh, we, the capitalists, are the one that needs to make the decision whether or not people can be free. And they both learned their lesson, clearly. Doug Ford's refusing to shut down, even though we're at like double the cases. Like we should be shutting down without a doubt. Uh, and Trudeau, yeah, he learned his lesson. Oh yeah, right. You can't have a CERB, right? You can't just have a general support system to help people because that doesn't benefit capitalists. You need to have other support systems that capitalists decide whether or not you get a hold of. That's how you keep control of the populace. And also pretend like you give a shit about them. Which I do think Trudeau actually does give a shit. He's just so weak. He's just weak. Like, I just think that that guy can be pushed around. He has no actual understanding of what's happening. I think that that's just fundamentally true. I don't think he really understands what's going on. That he really is just a guy who stands up and reads cue cards for the most part. I don't really, and like the one moment he was given he was put in a position where he had to have an idea. He had a really good idea, which was passive basic income. And then he was taught otherwise. And he just sort of, okay. I mean, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Right? Because capitalists are effective liars, so even the Prime Minister of Canada can be duped. And that really is it. I just, like, while I think that Doug Ford is actually a mean spirited sociopath, I really just think that Justin Trudeau is kind of a dupe. And and so to link it back to Trump, right? Like Trump's just reaping what he sowed. It really is that. Like he's going around shit talking everybody, even though he's just like a total sycophant. Like he has no ideological position. Like if the people who were worshiping him were K-pop uh loving altruists, right? If the people who were worshiping him and giving him accolades and showing up to his rallies and loving him no matter what he said and like paying homage to him and putting on his merchandise and uh, uh buying all this stuff and cheering for him, if they were saying things like everyone should have clean water and everyone should have clean air, then that's what Donald Trump would talk about. Like for real. Like he has no opinions. He has no ideological backing. He doesn't believe anything, right? He believes what people want him to believe because that's the way he gets attention. Um he doesn't, because he didn't grow up, right? He's not much older than 8, right? You can really see it. He's just an 8-year-old, right? He's just an old 8-year-old walking around being an 8-year-old, right? Just like, just in the way he acts and the way he thinks and the way he talks, right? And he just goes where the attention is. He has no opinions. He doesn't actually think anything. And if the people who were voting for him and were in love with him were like, I don't know, like if they were peace loving anti warmongers, he would be a peace loving anti warmonger, right? At least in the way he speaks, at least in what he says. It really is that way with him, that it's like whoever is in the room with him, like however he convinces them to make him the center of the attention, he'll do it because that's his objective. Donald Trump's objective is not to uh, Donald Trump's objective is not to do anything, right? It's just to be surrounded by people who are paying attention to him. That's it. Like that's it. It's the only reason that he became the president. The only reason he pursued it in the first place is because he's just such an attention seeker. Just take a look at before he became president, right? Like he was insisting to go into movies, right? Like he was insisting uh, he insisted that like people could use his properties, right? He's a real estate guy, real estate mogul, Donald Trump. You can tell he puts his big name on the side of buildings, right? Pay attention. Who else does this? Who is doing this? Putting their name on the side of buildings, insisting that if you want to use their buildings, he needs to have a cameo in the movie. Going into the WWE, acting like such a big shot, and then pivoting off of that and becoming a reality TV show guy. Like the guy is just an attention seeker, probably because his dad didn't pay any fucking attention to him at all, right? Probably because his dad ignored the shit out of him. And so he just never got older than 8, and he just is always looking for that kind of daddy affection, that classic, just I want my dad to love me kind of stuff. Um, and like now he's the president, and he's like, yeah, my dad be proud of me, right? And that's it. Yeah, my dad be proud of me. Like I got all these followers. And it wouldn't matter what the followers are saying, right? Like if the followers were Bernie Sanders supporters, right? If people who were like Bernie Sanders supporters, like they just want free healthcare for everybody, right? They're just looking to improve their society, right? Sort of modernize their society. Then that's what Donald Trump would be saying, right? Like he doesn't believe anything. And so this coronavirus thing is just like it's absolutely a total comeuppance. And what would be just like every so often, I like to think every so often that the universe is sentient. That's my theological upbringing, I think, that does that. But I sort of imagine, okay, the universe is actually sentient and it's actually it's actually manipulating things to a degree. What a hilarious turn of events it would be if Donald Trump just died. Just he was like, what an unexpected turn that everybody would just be like, oh. Like the universe is just like, yeah, you had your fun. You're probably not going to get this second term anyway, bud. Uh, and you know, the end of your life, like the whole rest of it's just gonna be sad. So out you go, right? Boop. And then we'd get like Pence, right? And in my view, Pence is far worse than Trump. This is one thing. Like people are like, I hope Trump dies, and yeah, you get the coronavirus. Pence is worse than Trump by a lot. Like he's a much more scary person because Pence actually believes in things. And what Pence believes in is the cleansing of the human race from anything that is white and non-Christian, from anything that is not white and non-Christian, right? Like Mike Pence is like a fundamentalist, evangelical white supremacist, unabashedly so. He genuinely believes like the that a wizard is going to come back at any moment and cleanse this land of non-Christians. Like he thinks that's true. Like this guy, like the like Mike Pence would make the Trump administration look like child's play, right? Like Mike Pence would like ramp up a war machine like nothing you've ever seen. It would be another crusade. It would be absurd. Like Trump occasionally would be like, "Yeah, we should pull out of this area. Yeah, we should do less." Nah, Mike Pence won't do that. Mike Pence believes that he's cleansing this land. Jesus. All right, that's the end of me. I hope you guys are doing well out there. Go find a friend, high five your neighbor, bake some cookies. I don't know, do something. Try to find love if you can. Good luck.